Two Davids Walk Into a Bar was filmed before a live studio audience.
Put in a pre-recorded movie, and this Panasonic gives you hi-fi sound through your stereo. Sound so far superior to ordinary TV, it stands out by itself. Panasonic Video Systems, just slightly ahead of our time.
High five for death and alive. Plastic like a man from a casket. High five for death and alive. Plastic like a man from a casket.
Okay, so we're talking about Warner Brothers, Warner Communications Incorporated.
As it started as WCI Entertainment or something. WCI something.
It started as WCI
Home video,
and the big box we called it, which not quite as big as like your Albert Band Lightning video boxes or your adult movie boxes. These were just like they were boxes that opened up and they had like a little thing in there, a little cradle for the tape. And I have some very good examples here that I'm showing.
Their quality was wanting. Their quality was not there. They would cheap out. Their original release of Superman, they took a 143-minute film or 135-minute film and tried to get it. Like they somehow got like a slightly longer tape, so it was 127. They took it and made it 127 minutes.
They truncated it.
Either sped it up or
they didn't have. They didn't really have the time. I guess they didn't have the time yet nailed down for the videotapes. They could only go up to a certain amount, like 120 minutes and change. And then I guess they convert. I want to assume
the thinner tapes started out around like 79, 80. Like you could get like a 120.
It's in my video.
120.
My video is going to be a part of this episode that I have the Superman title there, but I don't have the year offhand when it was. We'll see when we look at it.
But it was they came out with the thinner, like they were able to have thinner tapes post 79, 80. They could have like a 120, a 160, and then later, and maybe we'll get to it like when we get to like the Dances with Wolves, a 3-hour movie was on one tape. It was on a 180.
And as you'll see in my video that I have Prince of the City, which is this enormous box with 2 tapes on it.
That easily could have fit on a 160, like a 165. Like Amadeus. Amadeus was on one tape, and that was like a 160. It was like I think they put it on like a 160 plus.
So Warner Brothers experimented with the rental-only market for videos, method also used by 20th Century Fox on their first release of Star Wars. According to VHS Collector, great site, recommend everybody go and look at it. And I hope people there are listening to it here. I worked for you guys. 2 known films released in this manner were Superman 2 and Excalibur. Yeah. Other films released for rental included Dirty Harry, The Enforcer, Prince of the City, like I mentioned, and Sharky's Machine, which is also in my collection.
But that didn't last long. That whole sort of rental idea didn't last long because they realized, I think they realized, why are we alien? Because I think it was they were only selling them to video stores, and then they realized that they could actually sell them for just as much at the video stores and sell them at the regular price through, I guess, other retailers or something, and people would still buy them. Like people were renting. I'm gonna assume that Warner's was spending more money because their clamshells and even their big boxes there looked like they were very expensive to produce. Mm-hmm. So they were a studio in financial jeopardy by the mid-'60s. So what they did was they started sending up independent operations when they were catering to the youth market. Warner Brothers was one among the first motion picture companies to have a specific division for the youth market. Even though they went through several acquisitions, Seven Arts sold it to Kinney, the Kinney Company, which was headed by Ted Ashley. Kinney ran parking lots. Now, Ted Ashley brought in Fred Weintraub. Fred Weintraub ran coffee houses in Greenwich Village. He introduced acts such as Peter, Paul, and Mary, Lenny Bruce, with whom he was arrested for obscenity, Randy Newman, the Isley Brothers, Woody Allen, and Bill Cosby. So it was Weintraub's job to bring younger audiences to Warner Brothers films. And this is when they became popular. When they started going, they were a mainstream company, but they were doing interesting, subversive type of films, such as the Dirty Harry movies. Dirty Harry, like Billy Jack?
And they had a open pickup policy, which means it wasn't unusual. You would see every film director working then and now have had movies released and distributed by Warner Brothers. And most famously, Warner enjoyed relationships with Clint Eastwood and Stanley Kubrick. They had lifelong relationships with these two.
They still do with Clint Eastwood. He still cranks out movies for him.
And you mentioned Billy Jack a second ago. There was also movies like Performance, which was directed by Donald Cammell and Nick Rogue, starring Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
Obviously meant to appeal to the youth market. Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, well.
Straw Dogs, stuff like that. The logo that we remember as kids, especially renting videos, was the one that was designed by Saul Bass. And he designed this famous logo that we all know, which is these three oval shapes
kind of with a dot at the end, and it's sort of rounded sort of thing.
Yeah, and around, it forms a W, and it comes out. Remember, it came out at you?
Yeah, it came out at you. But this was only used for, I want to say, because it was replaced in the. It
was replaced by the Shield logo,
original.
right?
They kind of went back to the original, and
they went back to
not
the
only
Shield
did they go back
logo.
to the original, they went back to the. I think it may have started with the film Gremlins. I think it feels like it did. Or maybe
it might,
like around then,
I
like 84.
I think you're right. I think
it started with not only with the Warner Brothers Shield, but like the Warner Brothers fanfare.
1984. Yeah, it's like dun 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 dun. Yeah, it's also that is part of. You'll find that on certain clamshell releases toward the end. I guess 84. I want to say, maybe 83 or 84. They put in the famous Warner Home Video thing with it floating through the clouds, which I'm going to show here. Also, as a gag, I just want to throw in Madonna's entrance behind the shield for "Who's That Girl?"
No, a movie I've not seen, so I'll see it.
It's actually, you know what? It's a good movie. It's stupid, but Griffin Dunn is.
It's no After Hours.
So, going through some of the titles before we launch into the wonderful video that I produced for everybody, the first thing that pops out, I mentioned a movie to you called Hey Good Looking that was directed by Ralph Bakshi. This movie you can't find anywhere. It's only available on the Warner clamshell. You can't find it on DVD. You know, he has problems. He had problems with that kind of stuff.
He did a bunch of like post Fritz the Cat, which is also a Warner clamshell, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think his main problem had to do with the music and all that. He always put like music, and they let you put in the music for the movie when it's in general release in theaters. But I guess when video comes around, they don't want to do that. And then here we have your truncated Superman on the WCI home video big box.
Yes.
Now the big boxes are tough to find in good condition because they are just the box. Again, wear and tear issues like you have with the Fox box.
Yeah.
And this is why so many of my clamshells are in great condition because they're protected very well. The only thing you have to worry about when it comes to Warner clamshells is sunlight. Sunlight tends to melt that plastic.
Yeah, and they're always,
as you can see,
they're usually sitting in a window. They're like sitting in a window for years.
And then we have 10, which is a very popular cover because you have a beautiful publicity still of Bo Derek on the cover. This is another thing to mention is that Warner would often alternate between movie posters and really interesting publicity stills.
Wasn't 10 one of those sort of Warner Orion movies?
Yes, it was. It was an Orion picture.
Like people might not remember this. Okay, they might remember Orion Pictures, but they didn't kind of become their own entity until say like the early 80s. Before then, they were a sort of a production company, but they would release their films through Warner Brothers, and that's how Warner Brothers. That's why a lot of the early Orion films are Warner Brothers films, including, and this is the weird thing of like. Blade Runner, that's one of those weird sort of floating zombie titles because it was a Lad Company release.
It was a Lad Company release
through Warner Brothers
in association with Sir Run Shaw. This company, Tandem Productions, which was Bud Yorkin, Jerry Parenchio, and Norman Lear, all put together to make this motion picture company. And so I think Warner, the deal with Warner was they got money from Warner Brothers for their budget in exchange for distributing the film and pocketing a lot of the money.
But then they signed some sort of side deal with Embassy Entertainment, which was a generally new company at the time. It was sort of from
Embassy Entertainment, and then it goes over to Turner, It's ridiculous. It sees so
but then
many different
all the
releases
international
as a result
releases
of
of Blade Runner are on Warner Home Video. Like even the early one.
that. Now they are.
And
I
now
think,
they are again because they got the rights back.
the rights.
when they did
yeah, the rights reverted. That's part of their
when
deal.
they-
The rights reverted back to Warner Brothers in 1992 when they did
that director's cut thing. And what's really weird about rights, okay, so we have this new Blade Runner movie coming out, Blade Runner 2049. It's going to be released by Warner Brothers. It's produced by like Alcon Entertainment or something. So it's being released. It's being released by Warner Brothers in the U.S., but everywhere else is being released by Sony.
Since you brought up Orion, we can launch into a little bit of the Orion story here, because they did have an inextricable connection. Warner Brothers did back then what MGM seems to be doing now, which is buying up every single production company they can in an effort to continue to remain relevant. That's what Warner Brothers was doing because, like I said, they were in a lot of financial trouble from the 60s on until they started hitting into their own franchise.
Would you say like there was a couple? They had a couple of big, basically a couple of big hits kept their company going, which is I guess The Exorcist would have been one. And
the problem with The Exorcist, that had some bad accounting going on. Because,
and then Superman, which it was basically they kept getting more and more of the rights and money because the people that were making it kept needing money to make the movie, and they were making it.
There's a very funny story about Kubrick's Clockwork Orange becoming an enormous hit, and The Exorcist going into budget overruns. They went over budget so many times, and Kubrick was convinced they were paying for The Exorcist with the money they made from Clockwork Orange. But that wound up being a very profitable, successful relationship between Kubrick and Warner Brothers at the time. Clockwork Orange being the first movie in that deal. He wound up then making Barry Lyndon. He made The Shining. Barry Lyndon was the only movie in that run to lose money because it cost so much money, and people weren't really interested in a 3-hour
I've never seen it at all, and it looks boring. I don't know. I mean,
Kubrick is I consider Kubrick one of my gods. I love him. I love his work. Barry Lyndon is very tough to get through.
The Shining is this weird sort of overrated, underrated movie where it's like everybody thinks it's awesome, but then a lot of people hate on it, but then it actually is kind of awesome.
I always watch The Shining. I watch it during a snowstorm.
Ooh,
that's the best time to watch The Shining is in the middle of a snowstorm.
And to go back to Blade Runner, it's like the original release of Blade Runner has like this sort of weird tacked on ending where they use kind of like sort of overhead unused sky footage from The Shining, like when he's like driving. It's like there's like all this like kind of like aerial photography at the end that doesn't really belong in Blade Runner that's there.
It would have been so awesome to see Blade Runner in a clamshell release. That would have been so.
Might there have
wonderful.
been an international version, like say like a European version, because everything was on Warner Home Video at the time?
There's a WCI big box release of it, but no clamshell.
Big box, but not clamshell. Oh, okay, really?
Yeah.
So you're saying in Europe they were still working on the big box even in like 82, 83?
Yeah.
Wow.
They were. WCI was founded in 1978, and they had licenses with smaller independent companies to get their product out there. They had a really extensive library, and that's why you have varying degrees of quality because a lot of the stuff that they had access to wasn't that great. Transferred only adequately to video.
They had a licensing.
So it didn't look as
they
clean.
had a licensing agreement with New World Pictures for a while.
Well, yeah, New World Pictures, American International Pictures for Corman also.
Filmways.
And Orion.
Filmways, I think.
Filmways. Yeah. Orion existed for a few years as a subsidiary of Warner Brothers, probably as a source of funding. That's where they got most of their money, I guess.
Because they were gearing up to something. They were trying to like build these were a lot of like leftover people from United Artists. They were sick of the crap going on at United Artists.
That was the problem, and they had the same exact problem running Orion. So my theories usually involve running the creative enterprise as a business. This is what they did. They had executives running it. Arthur Krim and those guys who splintered off from UA after the Transamerica takeover. Transamerica was an insurance company that bought United Artists. They didn't want to get marching orders from an insurance company, so they started Orion. And they ran it the same way they ran United Artists, but giving considerably less creative control to filmmakers. United Artists, for a time, in the 70s, in the late 60s and into the mid-70s, gave the filmmaker enormous amount of power.
Well, see, they had James Bond money, and then they had Rocky money, so they were able to fund all their little small movies with those movies.
And they still managed to run it into the ground. They left. They went to Orion. They took Woody Allen with them, and then they proceeded to make a lot of expensive prestige pictures. They won a lot of awards, but unfortunately they didn't make the money to back it up. And that was part of the reason why they... And also, when you're dealing with a bunch of businessmen who aren't particularly skilled in handling film, you're going to have a lot of pushback and you're going to have a lot of embezzlement. And that's mine and Andrew's theory about the failure of Orion is about embezzlement.
Well, see, the thing about Warner Brothers is every time where you might think, oh, geez, they're making lots of expensive movies and they're doing lots of stuff, every time they might have gotten into trouble, they would always like merge or buy some other company or something. Like they merged,
like what MGM does now.
And they merged with first they merged with Time and they became Time Warner. Then they bought up Ted Turner, bought him up.
Yeah.
So then they ended up owning New Line. Then they merged with. Then they somehow, this was like during that tech bubble where AOL actually bought Time Warner.
Where
for like,
AOL
like $5 trillion.
What is that company? What are they up to?
They do
now,
nothing.
AOL?
They do nothing. They probably still mail people those discs that like don't work. But yeah, AOL is still a company as far as I know. But of course, I think they kind of took the AOL and sort of absorbed it and like took it of its life essence and moved on. And now Warner Brothers is, I think, merging with the AT&T, I think, or at least trying to. So,
but remember that. But we must never forget, Warner was the most innovative of studios. They were the guys that said, "Hey, wait a minute. What if we recorded dialogue and played it back during the film?"
Yeah, that's true.
While everyone else was like, "Dialogue, get out of here,
Mammy,
get out of here."
Mammy.
All right, here we have a Clockwork Orange, of course. Then we have 200 Motels.
Yeah.
That's Frank Zappa, and this is an unusual mono big box tape I'm looking at right now.
Was that like during the Kinney years, would you say?
This big box is it just says Warner Home Video.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of like,
And it was made by United Artists. United Artists had a deal with Warner Brothers. We talked about this, right? United Artists had a deal with Warner Brothers overseas.
Oh, this is an overseas version you're talking about?
This is an overseas release. Of course, it's a mono.
Okay.
So it's a movie. It's a musical, but it's in mono. Everyone.
Well, it might have been released in mono because like I mean, if it's a Frank Zappa thing, it's probably a low budget deal. They didn't have stereo in the movies like sort of for mass consumption until like Dolby Stereo came along. Really?
Yeah, I have. There's a tape that makes a big deal about it being a stereo.
Oh, okay. Well, then
soundtrack.
I'm mistaken.
I don't know which one that is, but when we see the video, we're gonna keep teasing this video for everybody. From one musical to another, we move on to the penultimate musical ever, starring the greatest rock and roll band in the world, and of course, I'm talking about the Ramones in Rock and Roll High School, which I will be using. I will be using that song.
That's a new world. That's a new world title, I believe.
It is a new world release. Yeah. And it's I
remember when that movie,
I don't know that I would give, but I would love to have.
I remember when that movie because was it 1979?
79.
Okay,
yeah.
They showed it on MTV, and I remember them showing it on MTV. Like I want to say like 83, and they promoted the heck out of it. And I watched it, and I thought it was really cool. I had sort of through osmosis knew about the Ramones just from my brother. So I'm like, oh, it's the Ramones movie, and this was back in the day where they would actually just show movies uncut. Although it was a rated PG movie anyway.
It's a fairly harmless.
It's a fairly harmless movie. Got lots of great music.
Yeah, Bronwyn has a copy.
There's probably
of it, but she does not have
Blu-ray quality release of that by now. I would hope.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, it's definitely got the cult value. Bronwyn has a release of this, but it's not the clamshell. It's from Corman's Classics.
Okay, that was when all the rights kind of went back to Corman, and he was able to do what he wanted with them.
Right, and I have here "Let It Be" on Warner Home Video for United Artists, released overseas. Yeah. And then you have titles like "A Little Romance." You have "All the President's Men," very popular movie. Mm-hmm. This particular picture I'm looking at, I believe, is a Canadian release because for some reason on the Warner clamshells, their typeset was a little too close together. I have a Lassiter with Tom Selleck that's also a Canadian release. Sometimes the font, it's usually like it kind of looks like a Times New Roman type of a font, but sometimes the letters are a little bit squeezed together, and you can tell when you're looking at them.
Was Lassiter like? This kind of goes to Warner titles in general. Like it was sort of the double whammy of Tom Selleck movies that nobody cared about, High Road to China and Lassiter.
It was an attempt because, as we know, famously Tom Selleck was offered the part of Indiana Jones, and he had, after, I guess, I don't know, somebody told him he couldn't do it, I guess because of Magnum PI or something.
Yeah,
right?
they were going to shoot at a certain time, and he was right in the middle of Magnum PI, and he said, we're not going to release him from the contract. And you know what? He made a ton of money off of the Magnum PI. He was probably just as well known. He's probably right now, he's probably just as big of a star as Harrison Ford when you think about it, because he has had a nice long career. He is on like a very popular show now called Blue Bloods. He's probably making a ton of money off of that.
Which actually shoots in my neighborhood.
He's
actually
probably making a ton of money off of that. He probably gets a piece of. You hit those Jesse Stone movies that my mom loved. Now Jesse Stone. So
yes, but at that time though, 1983, 1984,
he was trying to get in the
he
movies.
had resolved to get a franchise.
Yeah, he was trying,
and he was hoping that Lasseter would be
Lasseter or High Road to China or what was it, the Runaway? Like it was these series of movies that nobody cared about, but at the end of the day, he made a ton of money off of Magnum PI. He probably made a ton of money off of those movies from his Magnum PI juice. Yes. So he does okay, and that's really what it's about, is making money. And he's always well known, he's always well liked, and is that so bad? No.
It's not so bad, and I'm glad that Harrison Ford took that role.
Yeah.
So we have like another run of big boxes that I managed to find at a very, very incredible website that has all of these, overseas releases of Warner Brothers movies. A lot of them United Artists titles, like Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, directed by Sam Peckinpah. Now, what else do I have here? Deadly Eyes. Oh, God, this is a terrible giant rat movie that I had to do a write-up for Vintage Cable Box.
Deadly Eyes. I don't even...
Death Wish 2, which I do have in my collection, but I didn't show in the video for some reason, but that's a very nice one. And The Exorcist and The Exorcist 2, The Heretic, in the big box, and you can see the open box here. It's kind of like looking at a restaurant menu. You open it up, and it's got the title there, and it's got the cast, and it's got little details in there. These are very cute beta set here. That's part of that. And we have Heaven's Gate, the original full-length version. As far as I know, this version was not permitted to be seen in the United States at the time.
No, it did come out. See, that's one of those weird things where, okay, now Heaven's Gate is a United Artists film, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so probably internationally it was on Warner Home Video. When it was released in the U.S., it should have been a CBS Fox title because it was a United Artists film, but it wasn't. It was an MGM-UA Home Video, even though it was a United. And I'm wondering if,
and even that, yes, it was in their big box. So we have Burt Reynolds as Hooper, which is one of my favorite cable movies. I remember watching that a million times. is that your Burt Reynolds laugh? Yeah. Okay, and then oh God,
yes.
But this is not the version. This picture here is not the version that I have, which is incredible, and you're gonna just drop dead when you see it. I swear you're gonna shit. Anyway, The Mechanic, starring Charles Bronson, good movie again. I love that one. Jan Michael Vincent is in that. Yeah. Motel Hell.
Yes.
You might just die laughing. It takes all kinds of critters to make Farmer Vincent fritters.
That's got to be an international release as well, right? Because I remember that's another weird United Artists movie that was on MGM-UA. I think it was around the mid '80s that the United Artists movie started popping up on MGM-UA Home Video. And I don't know exactly.
Isn't that's the problem right there with United Artists, is the fact that they were so scattered, they couldn't even get their own distribution system up and running.
They were never their own distribution company because they kept getting bought. Because then they became MGM-UA and then United Artists.
Yeah, because they had so many problems.
And then United Artists movies started showing up on MGM-UA Home Video eventually.
The famous big gray boxes, or silver or metallic gray or whatever they were. Ned Kelly, starring Mick Jagger, of course, Warner Home Video. Oh, let's talk about this for a second, because this was a discovery of yours. I guess Warner Brothers was experimenting with the idea, hey, wait a minute, these Warner clamshells are a little too expensive, and also environmentalists are giving us crap about it. So let's experiment with a slipcover, and it looks like they did with this version of Purple Rain that you
and it was released, I want to say, I remember the movie came out, actually, it was a pretty quick release to home video. I think it came out in like August of '84, and by like late November '84, it was already out on video. So like a 3 or 4 month time in the theaters, made its money. It was a big hit from what I remember.
This is such a strange. It's a big hit.
And this came out like around the same time as like other Warner Brothers big movies, like say Neverending Story, and that was in clamshell. And then even later
right.
releases of Warner, like Tightrope, which was I think even later, that was a clamshell. So I think we had discussed this of how it was sort of a test release.
This
And it might have also
had
been
to
because
have been
it was,
a test release.
It might have also been because it was kind of like music and it was more aimed at sort of a teen audience. It was a sell-through title initially.
They didn't want the big stodgy clamshell box. That made it
So
look like
I'm
it
thinking
belonged to
because
the
it was a
library.
sell-through title, most probably because of the music, people could buy it kind of like as an album almost. So it was a sell-through title. It was for I think $30. So yeah, they were probably
And look at this label. I mean, you got Prince.
Prince is on the label. Like it
label.
was some sort of special release.
Yeah.
Prince was,
And I think
big
this
deal.
might be connected to it might be connected to my Oh God that I have that I'll show you in a minute. We might as well do that. Let's do that, shall we?
okay. We're gonna go to the tape.
All right. So bring up Mob Video.
I got it.
And I will look for my video here.
Just I'll when you say play, I'll hit play.
You have it up and
I'm
running.
up and ready to go at 000.
Okay. All right. And in 3, 2, 1, click.
Okay.
All right. Here we have. This is my daughter
Yeah.
opening up the box that I brought from the basement.
What's in the box?
And as you can see, we have our first obligatory Star Wars reference. That's the farting case. If you close it, it makes a fart sound. And this is the THX widescreen. I just threw these in there because they were in the box. And in case you're wondering, that's Girl from Ipanema playing.
Oh,
in the
I knew what that
background.
was because it keeps playing. Oh, Man with Two Brains.
My favorite Steve Martin movie.
Dr. Melmay.
Melman.
Dr.
And,
Far.
Far. Okay, what else do we have here?
Still on Man with Two Brains. There we go. Prince of the City.
This is the enormous clamshell that I was talking about a second ago.
And it'll open it up again, and it'll show like the times on each tape. This easily could have fit on one tape later on a thinner tape, I think, because I think it says like she's opening it up eventually. Okay, it says she's gonna zoom in. Oh, 88 minutes,
Color.
88 minutes and 79 minutes.
79.
So that's
Yes.
106. Yeah, this could have just fit on like a 165.
This thing, it was not only twice as thick, I think it was even bigger on 2 video cassettes right there.
Yeah.
Here we have the gauntlet. And there you can see some of the damage that occurs if you leave this out in the sun. I bought this used.
And not only that,
It was
it's
already
a
in this
publicity
condition.
still. It's not an actual like poster.
Yeah. Oh, there's Sandra Locke, Rat Boy, Sandra Locke. And she's on the back cover too.
I always
Cop
thought
outruns
this
killers.
was like a hidden Dirty Harry movie because there were a lot of these kind of like crime cop movies. Caddyshack.
Now, this is the first part of my holy trilogy.
And Orion Pictures. Yeah, and Orion Pictures we were talking about before.
That's Orion and tee off with a foursome of the screen's funniest. This is the first of my holy trilogy of Warner clamshell titles that I had when I was a kid. Sticker looks to be in pretty good condition. As you can see, there's the Saul Bass logo. Sharky's Machine. And this is my daughter trying not to show her beautiful face. And that's another great publicity shot because it's got this look on his face. Yeah. Somebody owns his city. Sharky wants it back. And she's showing us the spine. As you can see, all official Warner Brothers releases always had that sticker. And here she is opening it for us. Again, fairly good condition.
I think that was a
Warner Brothers
TDK
logo.
brand tape because I think that they're House of Wax.
I have a couple of Vincent Price titles in this. This was the first movie. Actually, originally it was,
House of Wax
it was shot
and
in
Risky Business.
Risky Business. House of Wax was one of the first movies released in 3D at the time. It's not on 3D in this tape, unfortunately, to disappoint you. This was obviously a video store rental because it has a number 147. That's my cat, Siren. Bronwyn did this painting a long time ago when Siren was a kitten, as you can see. And there's the real Siren. There she is. Gratuitous cat.
And that's
shot.
one of the cats that are always having problems behind you when you're trying to... Oh, Private Benjamin.
The second of my holy trilogy of Warner clamshells. This one has a little damage from the sun. There's the Warner Brothers sticker again.
Now, I got to ask,
Yes.
does your daughter...
Thank you, Regan. Thank you for pointing
Does
to
your
it.
daughter even care about these movies?
She was so uninterested. Now she's opening it. You can see some wax.
Oh,
there's the Superman.
Yeah, that's the clamshell. That's the clamshell.
Now this title will go for as low as $10 on eBay and as high as $500 on eBay, based on its condition. This is obviously a rental. You can see it right there, and it's the full version, 144 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a nice, it's a very nice presentation, very nice package. And I believe that's the sticker. Crazy Cat Man loves his cat. There's Siren again. Life of Brian is now this is a zombie title that has
because
been
I have it's because it's handmade films. It's a handmade films production, so the rights went back to like George Harrison, I guess, on the company.
Yes,
and
I also have the Blu-ray of this
I have
as well.
the Saturday Night Live with Steve Martin.
Yes, this is 2 episodes of Steve Martin for Saturday Night Live, and this is one of the earliest examples of a TV show being licensed by a video
Yeah,
company.
because there was no NBC. There was no NBC. I guess it would be almost like probably a Universal title now because it's NBC Universal.
Look who's on the cover in the back, the Blues Brothers. Everybody needs somebody.
Yeah.
Not rated.
No.
Oh, now this is rollover. This is interesting because it's a white box. Actually, my ex-girlfriend's dad worked on this movie
Interesting.
as a cameraman. And here we have, it is an official Warner Brothers release, but it's in a different kind of plastic clamshell case. There's the sticker. Thank you, Regan, again.
Yep.
There's the beautiful Jane Fonda. And Chris Christopherson without his beard, which is so weird looking at.
Yeah, there was this.
This is a movie that, this is very hard to find on DVD
the
or
weird
Blu-ray.
period where Chris Christopherson was actually
Now
like a
look-
star.
Look at the
Yeah.
inside.
Is
Look,
this a Canadian
it's a
version
white-
or
No, this is American.
okay.
This is actually American.
Scotch
Orion
brand
Pictures made it.
videotape?
Yep. Love at First Bite. Now, this is interesting because it has no sticker, which I make note of. It was not made by Orion.
American
This was
International or Filmways or something like that.
it was made independently by George Hamilton and his
A movie I
business
saw
partner.
in the theater.
I saw it too. But for some reason, Warner got the video rights. See, Simon Productions, whatever that is. I believe that's George Hamilton's production outfit at the time because he produced this movie.
I think that was kind of like a good size.
Now, here we go.
Oh God,
This is it.
this is the weird release that you were telling me about.
Yes, it's a big box design, but it's made for clamshell. There's the actual Warner sticker. And if you look at it, the cover art is not the same as the clamshell
No.
release or the big box release, I don't
The
think.
clamshell release was like it had the art. It was like in red. It was kind of like the orange or something on the cover, and it had a different picture.
And this is actually, I think this was a test to see if they could convert from the big box to the Warner clamshell successfully. As you can see, it was made in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Canadian release.
I
but-
guess they tested on them, and then here's where
And then,
here's the thing. Like, yeah, it's got like a beta label on it or something.
it's got a beta label on it, yes. And look, it says color with the U. But look, it's got a shield logo.
Woo! Yeah, this looks like a
Isn't that-
test. This looks like a test.
This is so unusual. Okay, this is a Fall of the House of Usher, Corman movie with Vincent Price.
She's gonna
And-
drop that.
And I was helpful in putting the titles here for some reason. And we have A Nightmare of Living Death and Burial. Police Academy in a white clamshell. This, I believe, was also deliberate. But I don't think we opened it up anyway. And this is Body Heat, a nice production still. Not the poster, but a nice
An
production.
8-year-old holding body heat. That's funny.
She holds screwballs later.
That's true.
They called it love. The DA called it murder. This is Arthur Orion release.
Orion, yes. Which another one.
That's a publicity
I saw
still,
that in
right?
the theater as well.
When you get caught between the moon and New York City, beta label there.
Probably a Canadian release, a color OU.
Yeah. Mike's Murder now.
Never
For a while. This was when I bought this. It was you couldn't find it anywhere. It wasn't available on DVD or Blu-ray. Now it's on DVD.
Okay.
I don't think it's on Blu-ray.
Is it part of like
Mike's
the
Murder was a
Warner archive? Like they'll burn it for you or something?
yes. It's a Warner Archive title. Very beautiful picture of Deborah Winger on the cover. And here we have Excalibur with some sun damage on it.
That's the version that I rent. I rented this version in the clamshell in 1989, and then made a VHS to beta copy for my brother, so he could watch it.
Now it's also got the Warner Brothers Shield. I wanted to mention Excalibur is one of those titles like Saturday Night Fever. It was re-edited as a PG version of the movie. It was released as an R-rated version. Then it was given an X rating, and then it was changed to NC-17 for cable, which is very strange.
What?
Yeah, I know. 4 different versions. Well, 2, 3.
For the
different-
violence?
Here we have Police Academy.
Yeah, Police Academy 2.
2.
Yeah.
And this is a rare PG-13 title for the Warner clamshell release.
Yeah, and this is one of them. We'll get into other stuff later. Of like that was probably one of the last clamshells because that's like we're getting into like late '85. Tales of Terror.
And we have Tales of Terror. Yes. This is 3 Roger Corman produced Edgar Allan Poe stories. And okay, next up, Deal of the Century, directed by William Friedkin. I'm a big fan of this movie. I like it a lot. I don't know why, I just do. I think it's really silly.
That's more of a cable movie for me.
It did show up on cable. I wrote a review of it. Dolby Stereo, aware of it. Mono compatible.
This was right before they got into hi-fi stereo.
There's your
Warner
Bass logo again. And here we have the Road Warrior, which I bought this one individually. It does have some sun damage. And this is like one of the few releases you can find of it nowadays that doesn't say Mad Max 2 because they appended the title to include
one of the first
Mad Max 2.
the first major releases in hi-fi stereo on beta. It was like 83 or something. It's regular. It's old ass Dolby stereo.
It's on the table. This is on the tape on the label itself. I think it might say it. I'm not sure.
No, it just says Dolby. It's like they say Dolby stereo, but that's basically on the linear. They take the little mono.
Wait, check it.
They take the little.
There
mono,
it is.
Yeah, they take the little.
Look, it says stereo soundtrack.
They take the little mono track. This is what they did on VHS. They took a little mono track and split it in half. Oh, swing shift, and then they put Dolby noise reduction on it, and then that's how they would call it Dolby stereo.
This has sticker stains on it. Insert shameless vintage cable. Oh yes, I wrote a review of this recently, and I watched it on our VCR. Interesting movie.
Directed by
kind of a weird
Jonathan Demme
mix. Jonathan Demme directed it. He fought with Goldie Hawn constantly over the tone. He wanted to make a more serious movie. She wanted to make a comedy. And this is Twilight Zone the movie. Another cable box plug here. This is a great cover. It's the poster. And down here we have the titles with all the different filmmakers who worked on it, including George Miller, who directed The Road Warrior. Interesting picks there that they selected.
Yeah.
And then going down, more is what you'll beg for. Dolby, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
This was 1983. It came out. Of Unknown Origin, starring Peter Weller, who I met.
Directed by George P. Cosmatos.
And also introducing the beautiful Shannon Tweed.
Really?
Yep. This is her first movie. There she is, rolling around with Peter.
Oh, okay.
And there's a little sticker here. Evidently, this was purchased from someplace.
$4.
Maybe Blockbuster.
It looks like a Blockbuster sticker.
It does, but it says "Take one video" on the label.
Weird.
And, of course,
yes,
be kind.
And you should.
And this is the third movie in my holy trilogy, National Lampoon's Vacation. I am going to throw up for comparison the new cover box, which looks terrible. This is a wonderful poster that was obviously meant to mimic Star Wars and fantasy movies.
Actually, I was going to say heavy metal, like the Den character with his muscles and...
Yeah, a little bit of Richard Corbin, I believe, is the artist who did that. And also, you get a lot more with this video, and I do mean you get a lot more watching this video than you would the
because
Blu-ray.
it's in unmatted full screen. You see more of the top and bottom, and it's really important that you see a little bit more of the bottom because you get to see Beverly D'Angelo.
Like you would see a lot of Mariel Hemingway in this movie. Regan was looking at the picture and saying, is she eating a flower?
Kind of.
I believe she is.
She eats something.
This is Star 80. We have some sticker damage. We have the beautiful Mariel Hemingway there. There's your sticker. This is a different color for the clamshell art. It's kind of a metallic gray. Mm-hmm. There's Eric Roberts being freaky and crazy.
It's like this tape has seen better days.
Yeah, it has. There's a beta label.
Yeah, the beta label. It's like, it's weird how, they've... Oh, Under the Rainbow.
Under the Rainbow, starring Chevy Chase and Carrie Fisher. This movie in connection with Heaven's Gate pretty much sealed Orion's fate. Here we have Sudden Impact, Clint Eastwood. Mm-hmm. I watched that, and I wrote the review for it, and I watched my beautiful Blu-ray version of this. This is a movie that does not benefit from 4:3. It was shot in
No, it doesn't. Lassiter.
Now look at the typeface on Lassiter. It looks a little too squeezed together. Mm-hmm. This is a Canadian release. It has flimsier paper, as I've noted on many of the Canadian Warner Clamshell releases. There's Regan's Mets shirt that she's wearing. This movie is extremely hard to find. You cannot find it on Blu-ray or DVD.
It's funny. He has his 80s mustache, but it's supposed to be like this is happening in the 40s. But he's still got his 80s Magnum PI mustache.
Yeah. Actually, it's not a bad movie. It's
It
really
actually
not.
looks pretty good.
It's kind of pulpy. Oh, and there's a here we have another
Yeah, it's
beta
got the
label.
beta label. Yeah. It doesn't even look like a beta. It looks like just a big slap. It's too big for a beta label too. Screwballs.
Nice. I only bought it because it's in such great condition, and it has really nice cover art. I think it cost me $2.
Okay.
Score 1 from the home team. This is probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. And it has a really nice sticker, good condition. And Willy Wonka and the Chocolate. Here's my daughter. This is her, looking beautiful and happy, as you can tell. Look at how happy she is.
I
Willy
think she'd
Wonka?
be happy with Willy Wonka.
And this is me trying to get her to smile.
There she goes.
And she tries to.
I think it's
Tries
because she was intentionally trying to make a face just to be annoying. There you go.
And she's messing with my camera. And this says children there. Isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
And there's the Warner sticker and the back of it. For the child in all of us, it's a scrumdiddlyumptious dream come true.
It is.
Rated G. I love this movie. 1984 that VHS was produced.
Wow, it took that long for it to come to video. That's weird.
And that's pretty much the end of the movie.
Okay.
I am you can send all the Oscars to David Lawler.
Yeah. And send all the hate mail to David Anderson.
Okay, so let's move on.
Yeah.
From that, lots of the thing about what I've always enjoyed about the Warner clamshells is they are still, you can find them in great condition today because they were built solid. You could probably kill people with these tapes.
With the boxes.
With the boxes, with the tapes
With the tapes
inside.
inside, yeah.
The Warner clamshells were there is a site actually devoted online to obsessive love for the Warner clamshells, because not only did it have this wonderful art, which actually did translate to Laserdisc releases for a time, right? You had this kind of, I don't know what you call this.
Like a sort of a multicolored,
you know what it looks
grid-like
like?
pattern.
Yeah, you know what it looks like when you buy a new printer and you have to calibrate it. That's what it looks like. It prints
The
out
funny
like
thing
that.
is, it would hold over into Laserdiscs even after they stopped doing it on the clamshells. Like, say, they stopped doing clamshells, I want to say late 85 with the release of like your hits of like Gremlins and Goonies, I think a little bit later, Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, those kind of movies. Like, so you're late 85, early 86. But then there's like this one clamshell that comes out in like mid-late 86, and I told you about this, The Illustrated Man. It comes out of nowhere.
Yes.
I don't know why this, like this one title, and there's this other title. It's also a clamshell, and something I was going to bring up. It's this movie that you can't get anymore. It's called The Man Who Saw Tomorrow.
The Man Who Saw Tomorrow. Sounds familiar.
Orson Welles narrates, and it's about Nostradamus.
Oh,
And it shows
okay.
all kinds of like basically apocalypse and what's going to happen in the 80s and how.
Well, it was generally accepted. You said this was 85.
No, Man Who Saw Tomorrow actually came out like in the early 80s.
I mean, the video.
The videotape came out a little later. Yeah.
85 probably, right?
Yeah.
Now, for The Illustrated Man, the only theory that I have is that it was initially scheduled to roll out much earlier.
Yeah, that's what it sounds
There
like.
might have been rights issues. They might have already had the
They
design.
might have already
kind of
made
like the Wiz.
They might have already made the tapes and everything and just been sitting in a warehouse.
They might have had the tapes.
It is a Ray Bradbury story, so that like that very much could be like the rights of like he didn't want to give the rights for something.
And they finally relinquished them in 86. They don't have any other design. They need to roll it out as quickly as possible. That's the only explanation I could come up with.
That makes sense. But as far as Man Who Saw Tomorrow, it's like that's one of those things where it came out and people were like, it was this rare title that people, because they want to know the future, and it shows this like 80s where Ted Kennedy is going to be president, and some Middle Eastern guy is going to attack us and start World War III. And how the trumpets shall be upon us, things like that. It's like weird stuff, and how he predicted the name of Hitler, and he just got it by one. He was like one letter off. He called it Hister. Weird stuff that was like whoa. But how the world's going to end in 3798 or something. So we're okay.
Oh, okay. Now, okay, I want to just compare.
Yeah.
I mentioned National Lampoon's Vacation, the beautiful cover art on that VHS. I'm going to send you what it looks like right now on Blu-ray.
Okay.
I have this Blu-ray as well.
On Facebook then? Okay. Facebook. Okay.
This is what it looks like now.
Okay. I'm going to do this. Ah!
See, it looks terrible.
It's this. I mean,
it's a publicity still.
It kind of conveys the story a little bit. It's got like the Winston family truckster flying over, but it's like this crappy Photoshop.
Yes,
it's not fun. I mean,
this is my problem with cover art now. Compare that beautiful cover. They took effort. And they created an incredible poster, which was then put onto that Warner clamshell, and now it's come to this.
If you've seen the movie, a lot of people have seen this movie, and people are probably buying this movie because they've already seen it. It does, like, the cover does elicit I remember that. Oh, there's Chevy Chase with a goofy look on his face. It's like it kind of like gives you that sort of nostalgia wave, but if you've never seen the movie, it's right. Like, oh, what the hell is this? It's Chevy Chase and there's a car, and it's like it doesn't. Although the poster doesn't really, the poster is of its time when people actually cared. Like, you didn't expect to get.
It's of its time, but it's also timeless.
Yeah, I just realized it kind of reminds.
It's a wonderful poster.
It kind of reminds me of that poster, the artwork for the movie Fletch Lives.
Fletch Lives,
where he's like, it's kind of like the Gone with the Wind poster.
Yeah, it looks like Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. It's like where they take Chevy Chase and they make it silly. They have him doing something that you wouldn't ordinarily see him doing.
That was pretty much the story of the Warner clamshell in 1984.
Mm-hmm.
They started releasing movies with the slipcover design. I remember Gremlins being one
that came out in late '85. I think, like we said,
of those releases.
I think that the Purple Rain was the test. Then there were more clamshells. Then around like mid-late '85, that's when they went back to the regular slipcovers that everybody else had for whatever reason. The era was over, and we were everything was the same now.
Right.
They got into Laserdisc around, like everybody else, like around like 82, 83, when everybody finally decided, okay, we're going to support Laserdisc. By then it was called Laservision. Everybody had decided that was the name of the format. Then they changed the name of the format again to Laserdisc, but it was the same thing. They would release their movies through Pioneer, like most everybody did, because they were the only ones that pressed discs by then. But then they started cheaping out, and they did a test release with Greystoke that was pressed by Technodisc, and it was like this like horrible, defect-ridden, couldn't track disc that I guess they pressed enough where they didn't have to feel like they needed to repress it at Pioneer. So for years, this was their own
distribution doing this.
Yeah, they were kind of like they kind of distributed their own thing, but then they would have Pioneer press them most of the time. So, but they were still distributing their own product. I think there wasn't some sort of exclusive deal through Pioneer. So they had Technodisc press this one, and it couldn't play, and I guess they made enough that they didn't feel the need to re-release it. So if you wanted Greystoke on Laserdisc, you were kind of shit out of luck because it would just be this horribly defected, and it was one of their popular titles too. So yeah.
But was it like a widescreen?
No. This was 80. This was at 84, 85. This would be full screen. We'll keep going through Pioneer like everybody else does, and it'll be a fine quality product. So then that goes for a little while, but then they start manufacturing their own discs at the Warner plant, like where they made compact discs. It was like the WEA plant. And they would make their own laser. Crappy. I have
one thing I forgot to mention. The reason Warner always found themselves at least financially stable was because they did diversify. They were a successful record label.
Yeah.
So that was always there. You usually have to have some kind of a backstop, especially when you're being as reckless as a Warner Brothers was, diversifying into different markets. This is part of the whole thing with the youth market.
Mm-hmm. But
that's what kept them paying their bills.
Their Warner press titles were crap. They weren't back quite that Technodisc level, but they were bad. And I have a few Warner titles that are pressed at the Warner plant. And they're I'm not going to say they're full rot, but they're very speckly and sparkly.
Can you give us some of those titles?
Yes, I can give you Excalibur. These are all like early '90s, so like Excalibur widescreen.
Bronwyn has an Excalibur Laserdisc. I wonder if she has the same one. Is it the one with the glistening sword and the artwork on the cover?
It's a pretty good. It's the early '92 I think there were 3 releases. There it might have had been they might have done the original sort of clamshell-ish release. Then they might have done this release like in 92. And then there might have been one like very late in the game, like 98, that was in Dolby Digital, but I could be wrong on that one. But this was at least mine was pressed at Warner. It says like stamps. It's like WEA manufacturing on it. And it's sparkly. Right. And then I have another one, I think my Blade Runner, my widescreen Blade Runner from like 93. It's like the director's cut. It's in standard play CAV on each side. So it's like
Bronwyn also brought that into our family.
It's on 4 sides. Yeah. And I just recently got the but it's the director's cut. So it's like the good version. But it's a Warner pressing, so it's sparkly. So those I think those are the only 2 Warner Brothers. And then so they do that, and then they still have like everything is like either pressed at Warner's or Pioneer or Sony. And Sony has its own problems. So a lot of their Warner Brothers releases are crap because they were pressed at the Sony plant and of just increasingly crappy quality as the years went on. So
yeah, you know what? It's interesting. What I'm hearing here is that Warner's experimented with different things. They had Pioneer. Then they had a contract. I guess somebody gave them a better deal.
Yeah.
And they went with that. That's usually why you switch companies, because somebody's giving you a better deal. And then they tried to do it themselves. So they're grasping at different kinds of straws.
Yeah, they're trying to save money
in a failing market, because as we know, the Laserdisc was a failing market.
Well, if they would have just stuck with Pioneer, although this was as the popularity of Laserdisc was continuing to go up, you needed more plants, and I kind of blame Pioneer. If Pioneer had been smart, they would have opened more plants so that they could compete, and then they could make more discs. But they didn't, because it was like right on the edge. It was just a little bit of extra money that the studios could make, and then they would have like a premium product that people could buy to present the movie. But then, so they do that, and then they finally, I think they just shut the whole thing down and started like taking that plant and making DVDs at that plant or something. But then years later, the HD DVD format comes out, and Warner starts making their own discs now too, at some plant. I don't know where. And
they were one of the studios that had the initial agreement.
Yeah, and for some reason, they must have taken those old Laserdisc making ways and applied them to HD DVD, because most of the Warner titles on HD DVD are all rotted and can't even play. And since it's digital, they just won't play. Like, you won't even get a sparkly picture because it's not sparkly; it's digital. So. And some people have shown pictures of discs. They literally look like they're rotted in the disc, like there's mold in the disc. And it's like, Warner, I know you're a huge company. I know you need to spend $350 million to make a Batman versus Superman, but can you spend just a few bucks to make a quality product? Because people want to buy your stuff and people want to buy your products. Don't make something that's just going to crap out after a few years. Maybe that's the point of well, we don't have to care because people will rebuy it. And we will, because we're stupid.
Everybody, you've been waiting for the final song that plays during the credits. I want to introduce you to Rock and Roll High School.
Yeah.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.
You, man, get the other record.